They say your home is your castle, but in our neighborhood, it was more like your paper prison. You couldn't paint your front door without submitting a form. Your grass had to be 2.5 inches tall or else. And don't even think about flying a sports flag unless it was an officially sanctioned game day. Welcome to Silver Oaks HOA, where the bylaws read like a dystopian manual, and the people enforcing them, they wore khakis like uniforms, and wielded golf carts like patrol cars. It started with small things. Annoyances, letters, petty notes, in mailboxes signed management. But like all stories about control, it didn't stay small for long. And for some of us, it got personal. I'll never forget the first time the HOA came for me. It was just after sunrise, cool morning air, dew on the grass, and I had my dog Max on a leash, earbuds in, minding my business. Then I saw it, a golf cart coming at me like it was a police cruiser on a stakeout. It had flashing red lights, a tiny siren, and the person behind the wheel, a huge woman in a visor and HOA badge, pointing like she'd just caught a bank robber. She didn't even wait for me to take out my headphones. Walking dogs before 7 a.m. is against community policy. I blinked. I don't live here. I'm walking on public streets. She threatened to call the cops. I told her she was welcome to, and kept walking. That's when she followed me. In her golf cart, lights spinning, siren, wailing. I walked. She followed. 10 minutes later, actual cops arrived. They asked what was going on. I told them. The officer sighed, looked over at her, then at the illegal siren she was using, and ticketed her for a noise violation and unregistered road vehicle. I looped around 20 minutes later and saw her golf cart getting towed. I laughed all the way back to my condo, but it didn't stop with me. Mark lived 2 streets over, a die-hard UK Bulldogs fan, got a flag and a pole as a birthday gift and mounted it on his porch, flew the flag on Saturdays. Then, once, he forgot to take it down. By Monday, he got a fine. But here's the kicker: the violation was supposedly spotted on Wednesday. Mark called the HOA and said, I took it down on Monday. They lied. We saw it on Wednesday. That's when Mark got creative. He printed out the full schedule of every single UGA sports event: football, basketball, swimming, chess team, water polo, you name it. Then he flew the flag every single day one of those teams played. He kept getting violation letters. He kept calling them back. Oh, the rowing team had a regatta that day. They eventually gave up. Janet, over on Maple Drive, decided to build a small garage. She got it approved, built it with beautiful cedar planks. It looked great, like something out of a magazine, but the HOA said she was in violation. All exposed walls must be painted. Janet argued, it's natural cedar. It's beautiful. They denied her appeal. So Janet complied. She painted every plank a different primary, color red, yellow, blue, green, even neon pink. By the end, her garage looked like a box of crayons exploded. The HOA couldn't say a word. There were no color restrictions in the bylaws. Then came the legend of Glenda. Glenda was 68, soft-spoken, made muffins for everyone, loved gardening. She had a tasteful little bird bath in her backyard. The HOA declared war. Lawn ornament, not approved, must be removed. It was in the backyard surrounded by roses. She ignored them. A week later, they sent another letter saying she was still in violation. That's when she realized something. They were snooping in her backyard. So she hatched a plan. The next week, she went out every morning to and sure enough, one of the HOA board members opened her gate and walked into her backyard to inspect. Glenda screamed. Called the cops. HOA tried to argue it was official business. Didn't matter. Trespassing. Privacy violation. The HOA backed off. She kept the bird bath. Got an apology. And within a few months, Glenda ran for the HOA board and won a seat. She didn't say much, but when she showed up to meetings with sunglasses and a thermos full of tea, the other board members suddenly learned how to mind their business. Glenda's win gave others hope. Like Joe's dad, he was into ham radios, emergency communications, DIY tech stuff. Put a small antenna behind their house. You could barely see it. The HOA noticed. Demanded he take it down. Joe's dad said, okay. The next day it was 15 feet taller. They fined him the day after that. 25 feet taller. More fines. Finally, they threatened legal action. He showed up to the next board meeting with a man in a suit. Joe's uncle, a lawyer. He dropped the bomb. Federal law protects licensed ham radio operators. HOAs can't restrict antennas used for emergency transmission. They had nothing. The fines were dropped. The antenna stayed. Joe's dad still laughs about it. tells the story at every family barbecue. Then there was Karen. Not our Karenin. Actual Karen. The kind of woman who believes she's the sheriff of her sidewalk. She was the vice president of the HOA war, or whistle around her neck. Had a laminated copy of the community rulebook in her purse. One day, she saw a teenager driving 30 miles per hour down the street 5 over the limit. She ran into the road, waving her arms. The kid slammed on the brakes. She screamed at him. "You could have killed someone." "There are children here." The kid rolled down the window and calmly said, "Normally, I'd expect a stupid child to run into the road without looking. Guess I was right." Karen lost it. Tried to get his parents fined. Called the police. The police. They warned her about interfering with traffic. That night, someone anonymously printed bumper stickers that read, "Honk if Karen ran in front of you today." They sold out within a week. Little by little, the neighborhood changed. Trash cans became tiny protests. Mailboxes turned into murals. Flamingos wore costume. Flagpoles popped up with obscure team pennants. It was like watching a neighborhood wake up from a nightmare. But not everyone was laughing. The board, they saw it as an uprising. They started pushing harder. More letters, bigger fines, threats of legal action. And yet, we kept going, because we were no longer scared. And one day, Cheryl said it out loud. "We've had enough. Let's take this whole thing down." It was a simple statement, but it felt like lighting a fuse. That was the day the resistance began. They thought we were just annoyed, but what we were was organized. And in Chapter 2, we start fighting back, with lawn art, legal loopholes, and the kind of petty precision only a truly fed-up neighborhood can deliver. Because if the HOA wants to play games, we brought our own rulebook. Every revolution starts with a line in the sand. In Silver Oaks, that line was painted on a garage in the shape of the American flag. It fluttered proudly not in the wind, but across fiberglass panels that said, "I know the rules." After months of intimidation, citations, and pure pettiness from the HOA board, our neighborhood had finally found its voice, and it was loud, colorful, and deeply sarcastic. This wasn't just rebellion, it was malicious compliance, and it was glorious. It started with a simple sign. After the HOA berated Cheryl for her Halloween pumpkin wreath, too spooky for fall aesthetics, she decided to test them. She replaced it with a white sign above her lawn. Black letters, nothing fancy, just one line. HOA approved Yard of the Month. No such award existed, but the sign wasn't offensive, it wasn't political, and, technically, it wasn't against any rule, but it drove Claire the HOA, president absolutely bananas. 3 days later, the HOA unveiled their own official sign. Beautiful metal frame, brushed gold letters, fancy emblem, real budget vibes. They planted it in a neighbor's lawn complete with a formal announcement, but the next morning, it was mysteriously relocated to someone else's lawn. A yard full of weeds, broken sprinklers, and a Halloween skeleton in February. No one confessed, but it never appeared again. Meanwhile, the mailboxes were becoming tiny battlegrounds. The HOAS war on unauthorized, decorative expression extended to stickers, ribbons, and even seasonal decor. After the 5th warning letter in a week, I snapped. I painted mine pale blue, not HOA beige. They cited me. I painted it blue and gold. They fined me again. So I read the bylaws. Turns out, mailboxes had to be painted in accordance with personal taste. Their words, not the HOAS. Someone must have updated that line without checking. I printed it out, laminated it, and stapled it to the mailbox. Then came the others. Diana painted hers in galaxy print. The Jacksons added flamingo wings. And Glenda, she turned hers into a tiny birdbath replica, complete with a baby duck statue. It was mailbox, and we were just getting started, when the HOA told Cheryl to remove her pink flamingos incompatible with neighborhood design language. She didn't get mad. She got festive. She discovered that costumes for small dogs fit lawn flamingos perfectly. So the flamingos reappeared, but now they were in costume. Witches and mummies for Halloween, reindeer for Christmas, Clemson and Carolina football uniforms for the big game, Cupid for Valentine's Day, and, to everyone's surprise, tiny judges for HOA meeting nights. It became a neighborhood tradition. People started stopping by to take photos. Kids named them. Even dogs wagged their tails at them. The HOA kept sending letters, but everyone ignored them. Cheryl's flamingos became folk heroes. Then there was the shed story. It began innocently. My neighbor Tim built a playhouse for his twin daughters, a cute little red structure with windows, a slide, and a mini roof. The HOA claimed it was a shed, violated visual harmony. They told him it was on his neighbor's property. The neighbor said no, it wasn't. They'd measured it together. The HOA didn't care. It looks like a shed, so it has to go. So Tim went door to door. Soon, the entire street had sheds, all in wild designs. One was shaped like a castle, another had googly eyes. My favorite, the one shaped like a pirate ship. When the HOA held a surprise shed audit, they were overwhelmed. Too many to fine. Too many complaints. So they gave up. The pirate ship stayed. So did the castle. And Tim, he installed a tiny mailbox on his playhouse labeled HOA eviction notice. Joe's dad hadn't forgotten about the ham radio fiasco either. He upgraded the antenna again. Now it rotated, had blinking red lights, even had a sign that said, "Emergency Signal Zone. By federal law, don't touch." One HOA board member threatened to take it down himself. Bad move. The very next day, a giant banner appeared across Joe's garage. FCC Section 97.15. Ham radio operators are protected. Don't like it. Call Congress. Joe's dad became a legend. The HOA issued a formal apology. It didn't. He stopped the neighborhood from making stickers that said "ham it up" and slapping them on every trash can. But the real explosion happened when Adam's vintage truck disappeared. He'd been restoring it for a year, parked it in his driveway during the day, always put it in the garage at night. One morning, it was gone. Towed by the HOA illegally. He got it back. 2 weeks later, it vanished again. This time, it had been crushed. Gone. The HOA board claimed it was a safety hazard, claimed they had every right. Adam, he didn't scream. He didn't argue. He just made a few calls. A week later, 20 wrecked cars appeared on the street, one after another. All legally parked. Some with missing doors, others with missing wheels, all junkyard worthy. And Adam, he walked around cutting every tie-down strap the tow trucks used legally, since they were on public streets. Towing all the cars bankrupted the HOA's petty fund. They never touched another vehicle again. But the most stunning act of revenge came from Dr. Liu. He'd been harassed for months over his landscaping, fined repeatedly, had a tree forcibly removed. They picked the wrong guy. Dr. Liu was a surgeon, a wealthy one. He didn't complain. He started buying homes, quietly, through different LLCs, one here, one there. It took over a year. But one day, he showed up to the HOA meeting and stood at the podium. "I now own 17 of the 32 homes in Silver Oaks. That makes me the majority property holder. I am hereby disbanding this HOA." The board sat in stunned silence. Then, one by one, they walked out. The HOA dissolved. Dr. Liu smiled, bowed, and left. After Dr. Liu's move, the board was fractured. Claire, the president, doubled down, called emergency meetings, tried to reinstate control. But now, no one listened. We had momentum, we had unity, and finally, we had a plan. Cheryl called the first meeting in her garage. 15 people came. Next week, 30. By the end of the month, we had a name. The Clear Oaks Coalition. We drafted candidates, filed paperwork, recorded meetings, built a website, and we had Glenda, who said, very quietly, "I've been taping them for months." It was crackly at first. Background noise, then Claire's voice, sharp and distinct. "They think they're clever. I'll bury them in citations." Then Tom, the treasurer, "We can fine anyone, anytime. The rules are vague. It's foolproof." Then the clincher, "I don't care if they're right. I just want control." We had the smoking gun. We played it at the next garage meeting. There was dead silence. Then a voice from the back. "It's time." We weren't just angry neighbors anymore. We were a movement. And in Chapter 3, we launch our campaign. Because when the people take back the power, even the pettiest HOA can't stop them. It wasn't just about yard gnomes anymore. This was war. The kind waged not with fists, but with flyers, petitions, legal clauses, and laminated HOA bylaws wielded like swords. We weren't just mocking the HOA now, we were organizing to dismantle it. Our mission, take over the board in the next election. But Claire and the remaining HOA cronies had no intention of giving up their mini. So we launched what would come to be known as the Great Yardpendence Campaign, a grassroots rebellion of pink flamingos, legal printouts, and the world's pettiest political fight. And somehow, it worked. We called ourselves the Clear Oaks Coalition. We weren't subtle. We printed lawn signs. Take back our neighborhood vote coalition. Flamingos for freedom. No more tyranny over tulips. Some signs were sarcastic. Some were serious. Or were legal. Claire tried to remove them. Turns out, political signs couldn't be regulated under state law, even on HOA managed land. She issued a mass citation. We printed that law on the back of every flyer and handed it out door. By week's end, almost every house had a coalition sign out front. Even the old couple who hadn't spoken in 5 years had one on their lawn. We were gaining ground. Then we played our ace Glenda's recordings, a highlight reel of board members caught saying things like, "Just fine M. Nobody reads the rules anyway. Let's bleed this guy dry. He thinks he's smart. It's just a but she's uppity." We didn't leak the whole recordings, just the juiciest bits. Enough to go viral. Locally, we posted them on a community Facebook page. They exploded. Suddenly, neighbors who'd never paid attention before were asking, "Wait, that's our treasurer. He said that about who? Why is she still president? Where do I vote again?" Claire tried to do damage control. But once people heard the truth, there was no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. The final straw came with a declaration. It was Glenda's idea. We printed a 1-page formal letter, declaration of Yardpendence. We, the residents of Silver Oaks, declare that we will no longer be subject to unjust, arbitrary, and selectively enforced rules. We demand fair governance, transparency, and a community free from fear of fines and retaliation. We went door to door, got 87% of the neighborhood to sign it, then mailed a copy certified to every current board member. Claire tore hers up, but the others, a few, resigned that week. While the movement spread, Mark was digging. Mark was a mild-mannered insurance adjuster and a former paralegal. He found something in the HOA's founding charter. Quorum requirement. 51% of homeowners must be present or represented by proxy at the annual meeting to conduct board elections. Most years, the HOA faked quorum, counting empty chairs or assumed votes. Mark pulled records. There hadn't been a legally valid board election in 5 years, which meant the current board was operating illegally. We printed that too, and posted it on every mailbox. The neighborhood buzzed. Mark submitted the challenge to the county clerk. And just like that, the upcoming election went from ceremony to showdown. We put forward 3 coalition candidates. Cheryl, running for president. Flamingo queen. Neighborhood sweetheart. Mark for treasurer. Knew every line of the bylaws. Darren for secretary. Quiet, polite, owned a printer repair shop. Could outpaper any opponent. We prepared speeches, organized a community cookout, even handed out yard flamingo pins. Claire called us clowns. So Cheryl leaned in, started wearing flamingo earrings to every meeting. Even Glenda joined the fun embroider birdbath on her cardigan. We had momentum, and we had the people, but the old board wasn't done. Days before the election, Claire dropped a letter in every mailbox. HOA under threat. Don't let outsiders ruin our community. She called us unqualified troublemakers, said we were radicals who wanted anarchy, even claimed Cheryl once threw rocks at a squirrel. And Mark tore up HOA signs, all false. Of course, we fired back, posted a video of Cheryl rescuing a baby raccoon last summer. Then we showed receipts for every sign Mark ever moved, documented and within the law. Claire was unraveling. At the final board meeting before the vote, she lost it completely. You people think you're so clever. You're just bored suburbanites with nothing better to do. Someone from the back shouted. And yet, here we are. That clip made the local news. The week of the election, the neighborhood looked like a political convention. Signs on every lawn, banners hung from garages. One guy flew a drone overhead with a mini flag that said, "Vote coalition or keep getting fined for your lawn chairs." Another neighbor baked cookies in the shape of flamingos. Someone else handed out t-shirts. HOA, horrible oppressive authority. Reclaim your backyard. Even the teenagers got involved to talks, Instagram reels, HOA diss tracks. We weren't just voting. We were reclaiming our neighborhood, one sarcastic slogan at a time. Election night, we gathered at the community center. Folding chairs, cheap punch, and an ancient microphone with too much static. Claire sat on stage clutching her binder like a life raft. The room was packed. We had proxy votes, attendance records, witnesses. Mark called for roll call. Darren read the quorum line. She just smiled and said, Let's vote, shall we? When the dust settled. Coalition to 76 votes. Old board, 12. Spoiled ballots, 2-3. The room erupted. People clapped. Some even cried. Claire stood up, muttered something about ungrateful children, and left. She hasn't been seen at a meeting since. But the real work had just begun. In Chapter 4, we find out what happens after the revolution. Can a neighborhood really govern itself? Or does power always come back, wearing a different badge? When you think of a revolution, you picture fireworks, applause, victory. But in Silver Oaks, victory came with spreadsheets, with volunteers arguing over a trash pickup, with Cheryl standing in the sun, flamingo, earrings, swinging, asking, okay, now what? Because here's the truth, nobody tells you about taking down a tyrannical HOA. You're still stuck with the HOA. Someone's still gotta manage the pool. Someone's still gotta mow the community lawn. Someone has still got to make sure old Dave Docent build another garage gym out of beer cans and duct tape. This is what came after the flames of rebellion died down. The rebuilding, the choices, the surprising cost of freedom. The first few weeks were chaos. The old board had kept everything in cryptic spreadsheets, half-erased whiteboards, and passwords no one knew. The community center's electricity, almost overdue. The pool turned green. The landscaping crew cancelled. The reserve fund missing $12,000. No paper trail. Turns out, Claire and her crew hadn't just been petty, they'd been negligent. We'd had to audit everything, rebuild from scratch, and deal with the angry neighbors who now expected miracles from the new Freedom Squad. Cheryl installed a suggestion box outside the clubhouse. That was her first mistake. We got over 200 submissions in the first week. A few highlights. More dog fountains. My poodle gets thirsty. They're a hazard. Free margarita Fridays. Some were jokes. Some weren't. And then came the anonymous ones. Don't trust Cheryl. She plays favorites. Why is Mark always watching everyone? Darren still hasn't fixed the printer. It didn't take long for the coalition to feel the same heat we once aimed at the old regime. Governance isn't glorious. It's messy, slow, frustrating. And it quickly became clear. Not everyone agreed on what freedom really meant. One day Cheryl got a call. Glenda's new neighbor, a guy named Carl, had built a 10-foot-tall birdbath tower. Out of old pallets it looked like a post-apocalyptic scarecrow. And the water. Mosquito paradise. Glenda, of all people, wanted it removed. It's giving me horror movie dreams, she said. So Cheryl brought it to the new board. Mark shrugged. Darren read a legal clause. Everyone waited. It was the first real test. We'd won on Flamingo, on freedom of lawn decor. But what happens when it's your freedom that someone else finds ugly? They voted 2-1 to politely ask Carl to scale it down. Carl refused. So we did nothing. And suddenly, the freedom fighters were being called soft on ice. By month 3, factions had formed. The reformers wanted to keep the board but lighten the rules. The libertarians wanted to abolish the HOA entirely. The petty vigilantes just wanted revenge on people who'd tattled in the past. One guy, Jeff, started his own newsletter, the Silver Oaks Real Report, full of conspiracy-level accusations like, did Cheryl fake her HOA citations for sympathy? We knew it was ridiculous, but it stirred doubt. People started whispering, and the coalition wants a beacon of community. Pride was under siege from within. That's when Mark stepped up. He didn't hold a rally or post a video. He quietly made a Google form. Let's rebuild the HOA rules, he said. He broke the bylaws into bite-sized polls. Should we allow painted mailboxes? What about lawn decor height, maximum fines, holiday decoration type? People responded. Over 100 neighbors filled it out. Turns out, we didn't want no rules. We just wanted reasonable ones, enforced fairly, with transparency, and without ego. And for the first time, the neighborhood agreed. We cleaned up the finances, hired a new landscaper neighbor's cousin, way cheaper, fixed the pool, replaced the clubhouse furniture, organized a quarterly town hall, even brought back Yard of the Month, but now with a twist. Each winner got a Flamingo trophy, hand-painted by Cheryl. People started coming out again. Grudges faded, mostly. Deben fined 3 times for leaving his recycling bin. Out actually cried when we gave him best roses in bloom in June. Glenda shocked us all. She stepped down from the board, said she was tired, then donated $5,000 from her retirement fund to build a community tool shed. Let people fix things instead of fighting about them, she said. We named it the Flamingo Forge. Neighbors could borrow power tools, ladders, and even pink paint. It became the unofficial clubhouse for kids' dyers and garage band ads. The HOA didn't die, it evolved. On the 1-year anniversary of the HOA takeover, we held a block party. Food trucks, live music, a bounce house that Mark Stilled a choir guy accidentally flipped over trying to get in, and at the center of it all, Cheryl's lawn, where the original flamingos stood, now dressed like founding fathers. The banner overhead read, Silver Oaks, Chaos, Community, and a lot of lawn drama. A local journalist snapped a photo. It made a regional magazine, the HOA that revolted and actually made it work. So Noahs don't have to be evil. They can be weird. They can be petty. They can even be funny. But they don't have to rule with fear. Sometimes, all it takes is a pink plastic flamingo, a microphone, and a neighborhood full of tired but passionate people to remind the rulers, you work for us.